Hey folks, Mike here again, and today I'm doing another impromptu session. I was going to go for another walk on the beach, but it started raining quite heavily. It stopped now, so maybe I could have gone. But anyway, today I'm going to fill you in on my massive music production mistake and why it's good news that I made it. Obviously, when you make mistakes, it's a problem, obviously, by definition. But there is a difference that I've noticed between the way I tend to approach the making and releasing of my music and the way that I've noticed a lot of other people approach the making and releasing of their music. And a frame for describing this difference is that it's the difference between optimizing for error avoidance and the difference between optimizing for that and optimizing for error correction. Because I'm definitely heavily on one side of the fence. I default to one side of the fence. So before anything else, I just have to say some building has started next door to me. There's two houses being built that way and one being built that way. The poor kangaroos are history, unfortunately. They'll have jumped off somewhere else. There used to be a family of kangaroos that used to live just in that field over there. But it's no longer going to be a field. It's going to be two houses. Yeah, if you can hear any noises in the background, at least it's not leaf blowers. That's all I can say. So I apologize about that. Anyway, so let's talk about my big music production mistake after I say hello to Doug, Ro, Jace, and David. Good to see you. Good to see you here. Oh yeah, and the other thing to say is that I have my Mission Make Music Your Life program. We're enrolling at the moment, and if you want to find out more about that, the link is in the description. So anyway, my big music production mistake. So as you may know, I am currently in the process of doing one release a week, which initially, when I first formulated the plan, was going to be one track a week, released in various different ways. At the moment, I'm just doing Bandcamp. That will expand over time to other things as well. The reason I'm only doing Bandcamp is just I'm starting easy, it's quick, it's simple, it's kind of like uploading to SoundCloud or something. You don't have to think about it, just doing it, right? Getting into the process of actually doing it. It's transformed into me releasing an album every week. Because in the asking of the questions that I talked about yesterday in my video about moonshot questions, asking impossible questions, where it turns out that the way that we think over here at Make Music Your Life is like a rocket scientist, it seems. You will know that I ended up, as a result of that, you'll know that I've ended up actually making albums worth of material. So essentially I'm writing music live, and then I'm producing some of the better ones of those into what I'm calling albums. Because my goal is to, and I mean, this is the impossible goal, this is the moonshot goal. My impossible moonshot goal now is to be able to make an album, like literally finish an album in the amount of time it takes to play it. Okay, that is as good as anything that's out there. It sounds as good, that is produced as well as. Which, for me is probably something of an impossible goal right now. I can't quite see how I'm going to do it. And I'm doing that by releasing music which isn't that yet. And this points to the difference that I'm talking about, the difference between error avoidance and error correction. Because if moonshot thinking, creating moonshots for ourselves is about thinking like a rocket scientist, what I'm talking about today, I guess it's thinking like a software developer. And we can learn a lot from all kinds of different areas, other areas, the great things that other people in other areas do. This siloed way of thinking about whatever we're doing is just, I think it really, really detracts from what we could do. We can learn from absolutely everywhere, which is why I read so widely. And one of the things I've learned from software developers is the idea of iteration. That every product that you release is, it's a new version and there are bugs. So you release things knowing that there are things wrong with it. Yeah. And I think of my music releases as that. Yeah. Now, obviously, to a musician, it would seem that a finished piece of music is a thing. It's a finished thing. But I just see a finished piece of music as another iteration of what I am developing. The software, the code that I am developing, which is me and how I make music. Right? So the pieces of music that I'm releasing aren't the thing I'm doing. They're simply an iteration of the thing I'm doing. The actual product is me as a musician, composer, and music producer. Can you see the difference? Right? If you think that your product is a piece of music, then you're going to constantly be going around in circles attempting to improve that one thing. If you see the product as being you as a music producer, the piece of software that is running the code that is running is you as a music producer, then you are going to be releasing a lot more. The more releases you do, and let's make this kind of metaphor kind of really strong. The number of software releases you do, in other words, another number of iterations you do, is actually going to mean you make more progress. And I'm sure that the many people who have joined me in doing one release a week are already noticing this. There is a material difference between working on music that you don't finish and finishing music, right? There is it's not just psychological, I don't know what it is, but there's a massive difference between not finishing things and finishing things in terms of your progress. If you finish things, you are going to make more progress. Even finishing things that aren't good enough, they're not good enough. Similarly, there is a material difference between finishing things and releasing things in terms of your progress. You are going to make more progress by releasing things that you finish, similar to finishing things versus not finishing things. Okay, you cannot there is no way around, well, not that I know of yet. In my experience, I don't want to be so certain, right? So in my experience, because I don't know everything, but in my experience, there is no other way of getting the information about what you need to do next other than releasing at least some of the music that you finish. Not all of it, but some of it. Okay, now, this leads me on to my music production mistake. And understand this, I would not have got this learning so fast and so effectively and so strongly so that I'm going to act on it and fix it unless I had made it and released the music. Okay? That is absolutely essential to understand. You may well think, yeah, but I can just like learn this thing and then I'll apply it to my music and I won't have to release it. I can protect myself and stay comfortable in my little world of not releasing things because I'm not ready. I would not have made the progress that I have made in terms of my understanding about this mistake had I not made it and released the music with it on it. Okay, so essentially the way that I'm doing things at the moment, you'll see here is I've also added a looper in here as well, which is kind of complexifying things. So, but the way I'm making music at the moment is I'm basically performing using the my stream deck working. See if so, obviously, I haven't sorted out the cameras. I must have moved them around. So let's do that again. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm using the oh, that's okay. I'm using the Moogs, and essentially I've just got three Moogs that are sort of playing stuff, and I'm playing with them, and I'm improvising over the top using VST instruments. That's essentially the bottom line. That's right, Zach. Yeah, this is what it's like living in Australia. Anyway, so just making sure I'm not muted. Good. So so yeah, so I've got the Moogs, and I'm sort of setting them up and playing with them, and then I mean mainly I'm using two sounds. I have actually added a couple of others that I'm sort of using, which I'm improvising with. One is a piano, and one is a kind of Vangelis like synth, and you lost audio when I went upside down. Yeah, there we go. I was just saying, all we need is a few kangaroos and koalas and we'd be in Australia. This is what it's like to live in Australia. Just imagine that. But they have done those experiments. Do you know those experiments where they've hung people upside down or something for like a day or something, and they actually get used to it being that way around? It's really strange. They sort of see everything the right way around. Anyway, yes, there we go. Error correction. Exactly. I was just correcting errors there. Anyway, coming back to the point. So I... what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I'm improvising over the top of what I'm sort of setting up with the Moogs, and it's kind of I never know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to come out, and that's what makes it so exciting. I'm constantly in discovery mode, and the way that it kind of happens is that you get these kind of pieces that sort of appear out of nowhere, and then I have to destroy them in order to create the next one, and it's kind of but this is how it works, and it's super exciting to do, especially when you're live streaming and you're kind of lost. You don't know, oh god, I can't find anything, what's going on, and then something appears. It's kind of like a kind of tension release thing. So what I'm doing is I am recording. Obviously, I'm recording to the live stream, so there's audio coming into the computer, and also there's a recording being made by Ecamm of the video of the live stream performance. Okay, and so that's going onto my hard drive. It's being streamed to YouTube, but also within the I should have opened this beforehand. I'm not sure whether I should. I'm going to give it a go. If the sound goes funny, we'll figure it out. Hopefully it won't. Fingers crossed. Murafly, why is releasing different to just finishing? That's like saying, why is not finishing different to finishing? I don't know. It just is. I mean, maybe like carry on watching and you'll get some insight on it. That's not a very good answer, is it? It just is. Try it and see. I guess is another answer. All right, but all right. So let's just go over to this. Hopefully this works. Yes. So I'm using this is Gig Performer, and what this allows me to do is set up, and this is a complete mess at the moment, so because I'm sort of iterating all the time. So this is what I'm using, right, to actually do the performances, and don't get freaked out by the complexity of it. It's not that complex. So essentially, the various different things are going in here, yeah, and then they're going through various different plugs, and then they're coming out here, okay? And well, coming out here, right? And the channel 1 and channel 2 down here are the monitor channels. So that's what the, here you go, you can see I've got it main out, eCam, and that's just a little, where is it? Where's it gone? It's behind my screen. Where's it gone? It's around here somewhere. Oh, and I've got thousands of windows open. Yeah, so here you go. Ooh, you see that? That's the main out of the door stuff. But what I've managed to do at the same time is separate the various different things, so the Moogs, into virtual channels here, virtual 3, virtual 4, and these are the live instruments. These are the effects. I can't remember what these are. What's that? I don't know. That's something else. Yeah. So essentially, when I'm recording the main out for eCam and for the stream and for the recording onto the computer, but also I'm recording these channels as well. So I'm getting the recording separate at the same time, so that if I want to, I can mix them later on. In order to complete the releases. That's a great point, Luke. In response to Mirafly's, why is releasing different to just finishing? Why is being on camera different than just living? That's such a good point. There you go. Yeah, it's like, it just is. It's like putting something out into the world. It's different, and it's if you want to release music, then you have to release music in order to know how to release music. Yeah. So anyway, so as you can see, I've got these things coming out separate. Now, what happened was a couple of times, because in order to do this, I need to press record here as well as start the live stream and everything else. And what's happened a couple of times is that I forgot to press record here because there's so many other things I have to do. Okay. So again, I've made an error. So what that means is that all I have, because basically this isn't recording the main out, nothing is being recorded here. I only have the recording that eCam is making that is going into my live recordings here. Yeah. So things like this. You'll probably see me in my pajamas in this one. This was just a test. So there's the audio on this recording. Now the problem is that a couple of times when I've done it, the really, really good ones, I've forgotten to press record on. Okay. And when I say the really, really good ones, it's like the performance it's like the music and the performance is just something, there's just something to it. But I don't have the separate files. I've literally just got the recording. So in that situation, I'm like, well, what do I do? Right? Do I prefer a better sounding in terms of the technical quality result? Do I prefer that to the notes? Obviously, I'm going to prefer one where there's something special going on. So the first time so what I can do is I can extract the audio out of the movie, and I can then, instead of mixing the various different parts together, I can master that audio file. Yeah. And when I first did that, I was like, well, for one thing, this takes a lot less time, which is great. Yeah. And the other thing is that it stops me from changing too much. Yeah. So the first music production mistake I made is not really a music production mistake, it's because I pressed record. The second mistake that I made, or have made, I think, is that when I was, because I did one album. In fact, let's actually sharpen this up, and I'll actually show you. And I'm just going to stop myself syncing. I'll actually show you in Zentor which ones are mixed. Oop. So I've got, these are the albums so far. Hang on, I haven't shown you, have I? There we go. All right, so these are the albums so far. 1, 2, 3. The 2 previous releases were just singles before I did this, right? So this one, Lingua Ultima, is, I'm pretty sure it's mixed. So it's the separate files mixed together. And these two are masters of the stream. Okay, and this one, it may well in certain ways sound better, okay, but there was something that I lost in the mixing of that album. It's like you start going down the rabbit hole on various different things, trying to fix all of the errors. Trying to avoid all of the errors. I mean, of course you do. That's natural. You want it to be better. But when I actually listen back to this one, I realize that there's something about it that's better, but there's also something about it that's worse. Okay? Is the thing that's better about it more important than the thing that's worse about it? Yeah, it's almost like the life has been sucked out of it. Yeah. So I have decided at the moment for 2 different reasons. One is because it's quicker. But actually there's 3 different reasons. One is because it's quicker. The other is because it's, let's just go back. Yeah. The other is because it's, what is more important, I think, is the energy of the original performance in these albums, which then focuses me on where I need to focus, which is actually practicing playing the albums. Yeah. So by preferring I'm not going to be able to edit out the wrong notes. I'm not going to be able, I can edit out sections, of course, but I'm not going to be able to do the editing that I could do earlier on in the process because I'm using a stereo recording. Yeah, so that's another benefit of doing it this way. And the third benefit of doing it this way is actually I want to learn more about mastering, and the best way to learn anything is by actually doing it, about mastering. And mastering an hour's worth of music that's changing all the time is actually quite a big challenge, doing it effectively. And I want to learn more about doing that than I do mixing because I've got a lot less experience there. And the reason I'm focusing on mixing and mastering and not getting someone else to do it is because I've got a lot of ideas around, I've got a lot of ideas around how to apply what we do over here at Make Music Your Life to mixing and mastering. So by building out, by actually doing it myself, I will kind of be able to apply the approach to these specific areas. I can jump up and down and say, get somebody to master all your, get somebody professional to mix and master all your music. But at the end of the day, a lot of people aren't going to do that. So it's like, right, okay, let's actually help people do it in a more effective way. Yeah. So that's another reason why I'm kind of focusing on the mastering, which brings me to my huge mistake. So one of the problems with using the audio file, the stereo audio file, is that, there's a few problems. The Moogs are all Moogs, right? So they sound like Moogs, and they're very, very warm, right? And warm is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from dull, right? Yeah, and they can be very, very bassy. They're very kind of round. Yeah, so they've all got this kind of sound to them, which is good in a way, but also it can mean that a lot of the stuff is quite dull in comparison to the music that's out there. Now, that needn't necessarily be a huge problem because, maybe that's just the sound of Zentor. It's kind of got this, not dull, maybe it's very, very, very warm thing. It's got a different kind of tonal profile to a lot of other music. At the same time, though, there is a point at which you've got to say, well, this is a new thing, and you're attempting to attract new people. So there does have to be some kind of a view to, well, what are people comparing it to? What have they just heard? Yeah, if this sounds like it was recorded, behind a duvet, yeah, in a concrete bunker, right? It's maybe not going to catch people's attention. So you've got to have some kind of focus on what people expect. Yeah, it needs to be in the ballpark at least. Okay, so bearing in mind that in my early live sets, I've noticed that this is a problem, that things are in general quite on the dollar end, that the Moogs all kind of sound quite similar. In mastering this, and that wasn't such a problem when you've got the separate files, right? But in mastering just a stereo thing, you've got dynamic compression, you've got dynamic EQ, you've got normal compression and normal EQ, and that's pretty. And you've got limiting, right? So I mean, which is a kind of compression, obviously. So I mean, arguably, EQ and compression are kind of the same thing in another way. But anyway, it's all kind of those are really the tools at your disposal. And there's a limited amount you can do, particularly as you're doing like a whole hour's worth of music where things change and the Moogs do different things. So the difficulty is mastering in that situation. And what can happen when you have a difficult situation like that is that, I mean, I'm no mastering engineer, right? So please understand that I'm like no expert in mastering at all. I have mastered a fair bit of my own music in the past in order to test it out on dance floors, but I'm not, I'm no mastering engineer at all. Anyway, in that situation where you've got a number of difficult problems to solve, and bear in mind just to come back to it, this is the difference between error correction and error avoidance. Because I've got this very difficult problem to solve, this is creating a gap which is forcing me to focus on how I'm actually recording these things in the first place. Yeah, so it's actually continually, by optimizing for error correction, not error avoidance, it is focusing on me where those errors are happening. Yeah, so that's another benefit of doing it this way. Harmonic exciters, it's saturation and things like that. It's like all part of the same thing. I kind of see them all as different versions of the same thing because they kind of are in a way. Compression and saturation, or it's arguably. I mean, it's really interesting if you actually think, well, of a compressor, a saturator, and an EQ as the same thing. Yeah, it's just a different. They're bringing out different frequencies and pushing back other ones, essentially. Anyway, coming back to what I was talking about, in a situation where I've essentially got to fix errors that I made earlier on, that is focusing on me on how I can improve the next time for to avoid those errors, right? So it's already, because I've made the mistakes in recording the things in, it's already focusing me on the appropriate area. It's shining a light on the appropriate area. So instead of going, oh no, I've failed, it's not worked, I've gone, okay, these are the problems that I am now encountering as a result of having done this thing, and I've got to master this bloody thing to release the day after tomorrow. Right, here's another difference between releasing and not releasing. Right, so I'm just going to do it as I can. When you're in that situation and you haven't fixed the errors because you've got to release something, what you could end up doing is you can end up overdoing it. So I didn't send it to my good friend, who is a fantastic producer, really, up there, really knows what he's doing, and he's done some stuff you will have heard and worked with people who you will have heard of. Anyway, he ended up hearing some of my music. I didn't specifically send it to him, but he asked me a question about something, and I texted him back and said, I'm not really using it like this anymore. He was asking me a question about Luna. I said, I'm not really using it like this anymore. I'm doing it this way. And then as a result, I sent him some stuff. So he gave me some feedback on the completed releases, which I kind of knew anyway, but which, really kind of sharpened it up for me. And obviously, he doesn't mince his words. He just tells it like it is. So I know, it's a very kind of clear picture. I mean, in my opinion, I think maybe he I guess he doesn't. It depends on what you're doing, because he's kind of in a different place to me, and he does different things. So for him, he's focusing on the right things. For me, it's like there are other things I'm more focused on. But he was like, yeah, is the stream out of Bandcamp a low quality MP3? And I was like, I knew that I had done that. Is basically I've overcompressed things in an effort to bring out certain frequencies and sort of reduce other frequencies. I've kind of overdone it. So I've made basically a schoolboy error because of the kind of mountain I had to climb in order to kind of get it to where it was. To get it to a point where I thought it was okay, because bear in mind I'm mastering these stereo files. Now, I was thinking about this last night, and at first it was like, yeah, I know, I kind of knew it, but I was just like, I just had to get the thing out, and so I got the feeling of disappointment. But as a result of that error, as a result of that feedback, which, by the way, never would have come had I not released these things, right? Because if they weren't already released, I wouldn't have sent him the things, because I wouldn't have finished them, yeah, and I wouldn't have gone. It's almost like when something is released, it's already released, so you get feedback. Whereas when things aren't finished or not released, you don't get useful feedback. Yeah, you just tend not to, yeah, because it's not finished. Yeah, whereas this is a completed thing, and here's a difference between releasing and not releasing. Yeah, when it's a completed thing and you've put it into the world and you're telling people this is a completed thing, it's like you are choosing that for it to be fixed in some way. So here is it's like your flag's in the ground. Here is a thing. We can now talk about it in a more objective way because it's not open to change. I mean, of course it is, because I even said, maybe what I will do, and by the I'll follow this up in a second, maybe what I will do is I will go back to it, I will remaster it and then re-upload it. And then immediately in my next text message says, actually, no, I'm not going to do I'm not going to do that. I'm so not going to do that, right? So essentially, because it's a release, I got some feedback which is incredibly valuable to me, because I now know where I went wrong. And there's two things that I did that I think weren't the best thing to do. One thing that I did, and I did this knowingly, I did this in order to see whether it would work, is that I actually used 4 limiters, yeah, but they were very, very light. So 4 limiters on the final master. Yeah, so I started with the Shadow Hills mastering limiter. Then it went to a good Hertz, Good Hertz Faraday limiter. Then it went to a Weiss maximizer. Then it went to the Pro L fab filter. Each of those limiters were adding a very, very small amount. Yeah. But I actually think that the mistake came in using both the Shadow Hills and the Faraday limiter, because they're very similar. They're not similar. They're kind of similar in what they do. So I think I'm going to choose between 2 of those and just use 3. Because taking the approach of, even with digital, analog emulations of digital, and by the way, the Faraday limiter isn't an emulation. It's separate. With those kinds of things, what I've noticed is doing a little with a lot works much better than doing a lot with a little. In other words, small moves with multiple different things, it just tends to sound better than big moves with one thing. Yeah, which is why I went for the 4 limiter squeeze. Actually, just to call this out, the idea for using multiple limiters wasn't mine. I got it from Streaky. Streaky's YouTube channel, who's a mixing and mastering guy. And yes, I am watching YouTube videos at the moment in order to develop the IP around this mastering and mixing thing that I'm doing. So it's very unusual for me seeing what other people are doing. Anyway, Streaky is a mix engineer from the UK. I'm pretty sure that he mixed some of my music in the past. And, you know, he gives all kinds of mastering and mixing tips. I recommend, definitely recommend checking him out. Anyway, he's been doing it for like 25 years. And there was a video I watched which was called I think it was the 3 limit squeeze or something. And he uses 3 different limiters. And I decided to up it to 4. So, and I think it would be okay actually doing it with 4. I think the problem is that 2 of the limiters that I use are very similar. So it's almost like they were doing a very similar thing and created a bit of a... The other mistake, I think, there are 2 other mistakes that I have made. One, which is totally understandable and is part of this process of iteration, is part of the process of optimizing for error correction rather than error avoidance. And that is recording the things in the first place. Without recording these things in the first place in order to release something, and again, Mirrorfly, this is the difference between, I think, releasing and not releasing. And the fact, you know, and it's also releasing on a schedule. So I know I've got to do a release every week, one of these albums every single week, right? That means that I only have a certain amount of time to record these things. Yeah, I'm running out of time all the time. That is creating the situation where at some point I have to go, stop, I'm going to record like this. So if we go back to, I'm going to record a live set right now. So if we go back to this, yeah, now this is like, it seems very, very, very complicated. I mean, it is fairly complicated, but I didn't do this. I didn't create this, you know, mess immediately. At first, there was just a few things, yeah. Like there was just a few of these, like maybe, in fact, the first recordings, there weren't any. It was just going straight into the UAD. Yeah. So as a result, the initial recordings had some problems. It was very, very kind of, there wasn't much going on. Yeah. It was like literally just from Moog to tape, so to speak. Yeah, because I didn't have very much time, which has meant that the resulting recordings are very dull. Yeah, so that it's created an error, if you like, which I was, with my limiting skills, was unable to fix very well. Yeah, again, optimizing for error correction over error avoidance. If I'd have optimized for error avoidance, I would probably still be tweaking this and would not have released anything. I mean, probably wouldn't have even done, probably wouldn't have even done a live set at all, because I'd still be tweaking this, because I'm optimizing for error avoidance, not error correction. Whereas I'm jumping into, I'm going, like, I know this is an iteration of the thing. I'm sure there are some ways in which I've overdone this right now. Yeah, but I'm only going to learn that by accepting that there are going to be errors and iterating on it. Yeah. So the second mistake is, I mean, it's not really a mistake, but the second mistake is in how I recorded the things. But that's because I was finding out what mistakes I was making by making them. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know I was making them because I didn't have the information. I am gaining information about the mistakes I need to fix by accepting that I'm going to make mistakes. Without that information, all I've got is what? YouTube videos, guesses. Yeah. now, because I'm optimizing for error correction, not error avoidance, I am making the mistakes in order to find out what the mistakes are, right? I'm going into this not knowing what I don't know, and then oh no, that doesn't work, or oh no, this is really dull, or oh no, now, with this, it's over compressed. Yeah. I now have a lot more information. Yeah. And then the final mistake, the final mistake that I made, I can't actually remember what the final mistake I made is. Oh yeah, I think it's just in trying to make it fit a tonal profile. I think I got too obsessed. I use this occasionally, and the danger with it is that you start mixing with your eyes. I use this occasionally. So this is the isotope tonal balance control. And by the way, this isn't the actual line of the actual tune. It's just because nothing's playing. So essentially, what you do is you. Hang on, sorry, you're not seeing it. Yeah, sorry. So this is the plugin, and I don't like using this all the time, because you start mixing with your eyes rather than your ears. And I think this was a mistake I made. So what it is that you can load various different tracks in. I mean, they've got kind of, profiles for different types of music. I tend to ignore those, and I just pick particular tracks. I've just got a bunch of floating points tracks. It analyzes them, and then it makes this curve. Now, where this is useful is if maybe you've got new speakers or you've got a new room and you're not familiar with them. It's also useful just as a kind of a little checking mechanism to see if you're totally way off base. But the danger with it is that you start getting obsessed with it, and you start mixing with your eyes, because it doesn't give you the full picture. Yeah, it just can't. It's like it's a map. It's not reality. And so basically what happens is when I play my music, it'll kind of give me a line, in any given moment of where the things are. At the moment, nothing's playing, which is why it's like that. Yeah. And what ended up happening, and this happened even though I knew it was a danger in using this tool. What ended up happening was that I got obsessed with the curve, and as a result, I overdid the processing instead of listening to the piece of music as itself. Yeah, rather than getting all comparison-y with something else, yeah, just listening to it as itself. And bear in mind, I made this mistake knowing that this was a pitfall of using things like that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in general, there's I'll answer some questions in a second. So in general, I mean, I still find this useful just as a kind of, it's almost like as a what's the word? It's just a rough guide, yeah. But you've got to be careful, because it's almost like our eyes are much more powerful than our ears in many different ways. So when you've got these things that are showing you stuff in front of your face, if you're not really careful, you can start obsessing about it. So that was the other mistake I made. And what I'm going to do in its, we're not in its place. I'm still going to check it. I'm not going to have it up until, I'm going to check it at certain points. The other thing I'm going to do is I am going to also use, I have done this, but I'm going to use references as well, not all the way through, but just as a checking mechanism as well, because that's much more about your ears as well. But I think really the point of what I'm talking about here today, and the point of this video, is to say that a lot of people I've noticed in their process, they don't think of their music as being a work in progress. They view each individual piece of music as the thing that they are doing. I mean, it is the thing that they're doing, but what that music is is simply an iteration of what they're actually doing, which is becoming a better music producer. And by optimizing for error avoidance, what you are doing is you are not progressing as fast as you can. Yeah, because you just end up in your own head going round and round in circles, not actually like putting your flag in the ground saying, right, what do I need to know about this? What do I need to know about what I have just done? There is something, just to come back to Murafai's very good question, there is something materially different about finishing something and releasing it. Both of those things are materially different. It's like the difference between playing something to yourself and playing it to other people. It's more different than that. I don't know what, I can't exactly describe what it is. But, if you are to make the kind of progress that you could make, then releasing some of your music has to be one of the things, even when you don't feel ready. I'm not ready. I've already described, I've spent, 45 minutes describing how I wasn't ready with all of the mistakes that I am making and will continue to make. And yes, it's unpleasant when you realize that you've made a mistake. It's a little, but it's also wonderful because now I have something. It's shone a light on what I need to do next. Yeah, I have learned something. And this thing that I've learned is because I've moved forward into uncertainty rather than waiting, it has given me a certainty about something that I didn't know before. Yeah, I tried something and it didn't work so well. I think there are elements of it that worked well. So yeah, if there's anything that you can take from what I've been rabbiting on about today, it's like you want to be getting to the next stage of whatever you're doing because you don't think you're ready, right? Because you don't think you're ready. If you wait to be ready, you will be waiting forever. Yeah, just do it, basically. Nike was right. So Cryptos is saying, my mastered kick drums are always weak. So I don't know what you mean by mastered kick drums. Do you mean the kick drums in your mastered tracks? Because my mastered kick drums is pointing that the way that you've framed that sentence may well be pointing to a mistake in the way that you're thinking about it. If you say my kick drums in my mastered music sound weak, I would say that's a different thing. With the tonal balance control, but just bear in mind, saying my master kick drums are always weak, it probably means that you're thinking of things separately rather than as a whole. And really, that's what this is about. This is about the whole thing. I don't know whether this will help you. This doesn't really help you. It just shows you something. Yeah? Sorry, not this. I'm not showing you, am I? Yeah, so I don't think this helps you exactly. It just shows you something. It's not like, no, it won't fix your weak kick drums. If your kick drums, after they're mastered, after tracks are mastered, sound weak, it depends what you mean by weak. It's hard to say. Really, the tonal balance control thing is about the various. I'll just go through it. And again, bear in mind, I'm not an expert, right, in this. I'm just using it all the time. I'm just using it, right. So these are the different. In fact, let's just go to the broad. So these are the different frequency ranges: low, mid, high. Sound familiar, anybody? Anyway, so here you can see the different frequency ranges of the music that's coming into it. So the whole track will be coming into this, yeah. And for this particular piece of music that I've loaded up the tonal profile for it, which is floating points anistic modular, I don't exactly know what it means, but essentially the bass, the low, if you want it to have a similar tonal profile to that piece of music, the line would want to be in there. At the moment, there's nothing playing, so that's why the lines are all low. So this line wants to be in there. The low mid, the line wants to be in here. High mid, the line wants to be in here, and the line wants to be there, right? So when you're, I mean, I don't tend to use this so much for mastering. It's usually a bit before. Bear in mind, I've got this in here before, you know, this is actually going in to the live stream. Yeah. So I probably wouldn't, you probably wouldn't want to use it for mastering because like it's too late if you like, if you like. But if your kick drums sound weak after they're being mastered, that probably means there is a problem with your mix. And I don't know what you mean by weak. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of different things. Anselm makes the great point. Make sure that the bass end is in mono, particularly if you're doing kind of club music and stuff like that. In general, it kind of, you know, it wants to be like that. So it kind of starts mono and goes a bit more stereo. The other problem might be that it's too much low end on your kicks. It's you know, incredible that people think that more is better down there. Not always. Yeah, there's just so many different things. It could be the sound of the kick that you're using isn't present enough. Often we think that a kick drum is going to sound more powerful if there's more bass. Usually that's not the case. There may well be too much bass, like low bass, and not enough of the chesty thump. Yeah. So yeah, but so really the tonal balance control isn't going to fix your kick drums. It's going to show you something about the balance, I guess, of your. When I say the balance, I'm not saying balance is a good thing, but it's almost like the because I don't think balance necessarily is a good thing, but it's the balance of the various different frequency ranges of your mix compared to other music in various different genres. That's what it's showing you. Yeah. So it's Cryptoso saying it's because my room amplifies bass frequencies and it always sounds good, but then it sounds weak in other locations. So something that you could use is some room treatment. That's probably one of the best things that you could possibly do in that situation is get some room treatment. Another option is something like Sonar works. I don't know whether it will work in that particular situation. I don't know. The other thing to do is get to know, like the other thing to do if you don't do either of those things is literally listen to loads of other music obsessively, like lots and lots of different other music. Don't listen to the same thing over and over again. Lots and lots of other different music that you like so that you get a sense of what your room sounds like. That's something that you can do as well. And the other thing is checking it on lots of different speakers. And the other thing is obviously referencing, not obsessively, but referencing that as well. And yes, turn it down. That's the other problem. That's the other thing to do. And also you can also use headphones, a good set of headphones. That can, all of those things together will mean that you're kind of reducing, getting better speakers as well. I don't know if you've got great speakers or not. Those are the other things that you can do. Another thing you can do is send it to a mix engineer. That's another option as well, a mix and master engineer. They're very, very cheap these days. Anyway, I've been talking for almost an hour, so I hope you found this useful. As I said, really the point of this is think about what it would mean for you to optimize your process for error correction rather than error avoidance. And really think like a software developer. Think like the people who make Ableton and Logic and the plugins that we're talking about. Because they put out a new release and there are bugs about it and it doesn't work, as we've all discovering. Trello is having problems at the moment. But they're doing that in order to improve. And yes, it can be frustrating for the user, or maybe the listener won't like it. But do you use Logic? Do you use Ableton? Do we use Trello? Do we use all of these software things? Why are they so good? Because they are iterating, knowing that the iteration is going to mean that they make mistakes. And because those mistakes are in the public domain and people are saying, look, here's a mistake, and you're seeing that it's a mistake, you are creating a gap. You are creating a situation where it's on you to fix it, which means that you fix it rather than disappearing up your behind going, oh, I could do this, or maybe I could do that, or maybe I'll do this, or maybe it doesn't feel right, or all of these different things. You're putting it out so that you know what errors you need to correct. So, as I said, I hope you found this useful. If you don't know about Mission Make Music Your Life, click the link in the description. As a program, it's less intense and less of a boot camp style thing than the Leap, which is a much bigger affair. So if you're not familiar with that, click the link in the description. And until next time, as I said, I'm going to try and do a few of these impromptu bits and pieces here and there. So until next time, onwards and upwards.